Hi, this is Denise Matthew, and welcome to episode 29 of the Mandala of Life, 365 Days to Self-Discovery. Today we're moving away from collective logical energy, away from the stillness of sitting with yourself and figuring out the patterns of your life, and also the path to the future that you want to create. Now we move into individual energy. This is intensely creative and mutative energy that comes with a lot of power and an ability to not only search, but to find the spirit in other people. It's about seeing universal abundance, and that if we truly believe in a higher source, we will be supported in this life, but only when the spirit that lies within us comes alive. Today we're staying with the root center and the pressure that it creates, but we're moving away from collective energy, where the pressure is to see the patterns so that we can predict our future. Now the pressure is to mutate the collective, to bring that inspiration into the world that nobody has seen before. But before you can do that, you need to find the right people, the people that are in the correct spirit, so that when you provoke them, there's potential for them to see something that they never would have seen without you to show them the way. But before we get into new content, let's briefly go over what we talked about in our last episode. In our last episode, we talked about the gate 52 and how it brings the concentration to the focus of the gate 9. It's in the details that we find the true picture, but only in the stillness can we find exactly what those details mean, because our lives are all about patterns and no two are alike. And that's why it's important for us to sit in stillness so we can discover our own patterns. And when we do find the patterns, we can decide what we want to keep and also what we want to let go. There is pressure within this energy, and it's pressure to figure things out. This energy says that we have all the answers that we need to our life deep within us. And when we take the time to be with ourselves, we can see the light within the chaos. And if you want to find out more about the Gate 52, please check out episode 28 of the Mandala of Life. With that said, let's get into new content for today, the Gate 39. And don't forget to check out the other episodes of the Mandala of Life. Provocation isn't a word that anybody relishes in the world. In fact, most people want to steer clear of provocation at all costs. But when we see built within this energy is the ability to provoke people into finding the spirit that's correct so that we can bring mutation into the world, then the general consensus for provocation may not necessarily be best to increase spirit consciousness, because that is what the Gate 39 is all about. It's a 10th gate of the quarter of civilization, and is deeply connected to the Gate 55 because they make a full channel together. The Gate 39 provokes us, or you could say reminds us, that the universe is abundant, and if we truly believe, we can be supported in our lives on Earth. And yet that is not what most people believe. In fact, we believe that we have to work hard, that nobody will give us a free ride, and that the universe is not on our side. But the Gate 39 flies directly in the face of all the information that we've come to believe as being true. The Gate 39 is half of the channel 3955, also called the channel of emoting. This is creative, mutative, and individual energy. But because it's so low in the body graph, it means that there is no access to the throat to express this creative emotional energy. So unlike the 1222, the other individual emotional channel, when you carry the full channel 3955, it can be sometimes difficult to express yourself emotionally. And when that happens, it can build up and there can be an explosive release of the energy after it gets to be too much to handle. So for this reason, having a creative outlet for the expression of who you are and the emotional energy can really help you work with the energy, because there can be a tendency to internalize the energy and wonder what's wrong with you when you're on the lower side of your wave. Creativity is anything that makes you feel happy when you do it, something that makes you feel good, that you enjoy doing. That is a creative expression of your individuality. And when you do that, it allows the energy to flow the way it's meant to, and eventually it will shift, as all emotional energy or waves of energy do. So there's no way of being stuck in the energy on one side or the other, because ultimately that can happen if we put too much focus and questions about exactly how we're feeling and why we're feeling that way. There is beauty within this energy and an ability to enjoy music, to make music, to be creative, and to be filled with the spirit of life. And if you want to find out more about the emotional energy of the 3955, I'll leave a link below. But for today, let's focus on the Gate 39 and what it feels like when we have a hanging Gate 39. When you carry this energy, provocation is built within you, and it's part of who you are. There's also melancholy built within this energy, and that's because this is an expression of the individuality, and all individual energy has built within it melancholy, which means that there can be blues within this energy related to the concept that you don't know when it is the right time to provoke or who is the right person to provoke. It's the energy of wanting to know exactly the right course of action in the moment. This is energy that we have more clarity with over time. The clarity comes with the idea that when we are provoking people and trying to find the right spirit, the people that are not provoked or irritated or frustrated with what we're doing are the people that are in the correct spirit for us. And that is the difference between knowing who is correct and who isn't correct. But because of the nature of the emotional wave, many times we need to provoke a few times to see if the spirit remains the same, to see if that person is correct for us. So it's clarity over time. Yet many times when you carry this energy, people will want you to make the decision in the moment, to actually know exactly who's right and who isn't right in that moment. But that's not the way this energy works. It takes clarity over time. And when you understand that that is exactly how this energy works, then you can understand that it is not about having a snap decision. It is not about having a certainty. It's about having a feeling that this is a correct way of being, this is the correct person to provoke, but knowing from the response over time if in fact this is a person that has a right spirit for you. Having patience with your process and understanding that it takes time for you to have the clarity that you need might be the best gift that you give to yourself. And also understanding that the melancholy is part of this process as well, and it's part of this energy. And much like when you have an emotional wave, expressing your creativity in the way that feels right for you is the best way to work with this energy and not against it. As soon as we start to imagine that there's a problem or there's something wrong with us, that's usually when it can get stuck. And the nature of this energy is that it's always shifting. And when we see that as part of it, then we can externalize the energy in a creative way and move through the flow and know that before we know it, it will shift into something new. This energy is auditory, as all individual energy is, which means there could be a connection with listening to music. It can evoke a spirit within you that makes you feel good, or it can evoke certain feelings within you that are quite profound and deep. There can also be a connection with food and also finding the right fuel for you. Because of the pressure and the tension that can come from the root center, because this is part of the root center and it goes to the emotional center, there's potential for migraine headaches, sometimes teeth clenching, and sometimes a lot of tension in the shoulders. So for that reason, it can sometimes be helpful to have massages or to have some form of relaxation that helps you to release the tension within your body. There's also potential to have a musical talent and also a passion for creativity, whatever form that takes. With most individual energy, the creativity is more of a need than a want. It's an expression of your individuality and it's an expression of who you are. And without some form of creativity, moving the energy in a way that it flows easily can sometimes be difficult. So finding that creative flow for you is important to keep this energy moving in a way that you're feeling good and it's working well for you. This provocation, it's to allow people to see that the universe is supporting us and that if we surrender to the world around us and to what is, that the universe will show us the plan for us. This provocation is a reminder to allow ourselves to see the big picture, to allow ourselves to surrender to what is, and to allow ourselves to see that we are going to have what we need as long as we start to believe it. And because that message is so profound and it's not really something that we as a collective believe in, provocation is something that we need because we won't believe it unless we're actually shown in a way that we are noticing it. The provocation shows us the correct spirit in the world, but only if we accept it as part of being human. And also if we accept that this is part of our aura, this is part of who we are. And as with all energy, there's balance within this, because when we have the gate 39, sometimes we can just provoke just because we want to, just because we want to have fun with people, which can happen with this energy as well. So seeing when it's the right time, as opposed to just provoking all the time, is the right path for this provocation. That way you can get the right spirit and be connected to the right spirit, because ultimately that's what this energy is all about. And when you connect to the right spirit, then that is when magical mutations can be brought into the collective. The gate 55 is called the gate of spirit. The spirit we're talking about in the emotional center, or the gate 55, or the whole channel, is related to the spirit of ourselves, about how we share ourselves with the world. It's about our individuality and also how we express it. Individual energy is responsible for all the mutations that come into the world. And when we talk about mutation, we're talking about the inspiring and new things that we bring into the collective. Because without newness in the collective, nothing would ever change and evolution wouldn't really happen. So individual energy is extremely important for that reason. It's the spark that ignites a fire, but the fire is maintained by the collective, so it needs to be adopted by the collective. In other words, mutative energy is not something that easily gets passed into the collective. It has to be proven to be something of value. And that's why this energy of the Gate 39 is very important in the mutative process, because we know that something needs to have value for it to be adopted by the collective, which means that when we are bringing the inspiration or this individuality or this expression of something new into the world, we need to have somebody who's going to bring it with the right spirit. In other words, when somebody has the right spirit to bring in mutation, there's more of an ability and a positivity that comes with it. If somebody doesn't have the right spirit with the mutation, then that energy is interwoven within the mutation itself. We want to have the best field or the best planting for this mutation to not only sprout, but also to grow. And when we have somebody who isn't in the correct spirit, then we don't have the best environment for things to be taken in by the collective to change the way we do things in the world. Mutative energy can be seen as a concept, but when we look at it in the real world, we can look at somebody like, for instance, Steve Jobs, who brought Apple into the world and brought the whole technological age into the world. After the introduction of the technology into the collective, where it actually took hold and people wanted to use it, nothing ever was the same. The mutation did take hold. Steve Jobs had a lot of trouble trying to get it out into the world, and yet he still did. And if we look at the perspective that he, Steve Jobs, and Steve Wozniak built the first Apple computer in 1976, and that also both Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak have the Gate 55 defined. Steve Wozniak had it in his Jupiter, and Steve Jobs had it in his personality Sun. And in 1975, Saturn transited the Gate 39, bringing a full channel to both people. We might imagine that it was a provocation that was needed to bring them into the right spirit so that they could create something that was inspirational and that would change the world forever. From a very mundane perspective, that story shows us exactly how powerful the energy of the Gate 39 can be, and that it can be the catalyst that we need to get mutation out into the world. We know that provocation isn't something that the collective like, and in fact, the collective don't want to have provocation of any kind, and yet that is interwoven within this energy. Ra Uru said that the provocation that is within this energy that doesn't express itself is like asking the sun not to shine. It's the fuel for the Gate 55. So in other words, this is the energy that propels the Gate 55 into the whole idea of finding spirit and the abundance of spirit, the abundance of our individuality, the expression of individuality, and the expression of a mutation into the collective. Just like the Gate 55 is said to be instrumental in the Solar Plexus mutation of 2027, the Gate 39 is just as important because it provides just the right fuel to bring the mutation into form. And if we look at some well-known people who had this energy or who have this energy,
I think if your name is mentioned and people say, oh, hell, oh, damn, I think you're doing something wrong. But if your name is mentioned and people say, oh, she's so sweet, he's so nice, oh, I love, oh, God bless her.
Dr. Seuss, with his books like The Lorax, provoked us into seeing how the environment was being shifted and changed by humanity. And finally, someone like Randy Pausch.
So I'm reprising a talk that I gave in September at Carnegie Mellon University. There's an academic tradition called the last lecture. Hypothetically, if you knew you were going to die and you had one last lecture, what would you say to your students? Well, for me, there's an elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is that for me, it wasn't hypothetical. I've been fighting pancreatic cancer. It has now come back after surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. And the doctors tell me there's nothing more to do and I have months to live.
We know that provocation is the energy that the collective may not necessarily want, but it is the energy that the collective needs. It's easy to be asleep in life, to not look at the world around us, but when we are provoked, when we are awakened, we can see the world around us. And if we're lucky, it can even open our awareness to allow us to see the world with new eyes. to see the beauty in our uniqueness, to see that we are here on purpose. All things we would never know and learn if provocation never came into the equation. Though the energy of provocation may not necessarily be easy to carry, it is energy that we need within the collective. It is energy that will bring a mutation, and it's energy that in the right circumstances can bring wisdom to the collective. Without provocation, mutation would never happen. And when we learn that provocation is part of the human way and the way that we grow as individuals and grow as a collective, the mandala of life turns again, and we move into a new beginning. This is powerful energy that begins a new cycle, one that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And only when the cycle is completed do we see the results of what we've begun. This is the gate 53, the gate of beginnings and the gate of maturation. Well, that's all for now, and I'll be back next week with episode 30, the gate 53, the gate of beginnings. Until then, take care, and I'll see you again soon.